Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel, Flowers Facts. On New Year's Eve 2024, a sheriff knocked on our door at around 6:30 a.m. Waking up to a knock on the door like that took a little time to process, and for various reasons, namely safety, we were a bit apprehensive to answer, at least until we had an idea who it was. By the time we responded, the sheriff had left, but from our security camera, we could see it had been a sheriff with papers. All throughout that day and the following day, we were left wondering for what and from whom the papers were being served. On the morning of January 2nd, 2025, the sheriff came back, and this time he knocked on our door longer and louder. And when we opened the door, we found out it was for a RO Myra had filed against Terry. In retrospect, for various reasons, we did not have to hire an attorney. For starters, for years prior to Myra filing her RO, Terry had not initiated any contact with her whatsoever, meaning other than passing one another while leaving and entering our building, and Myra going out of her way to abuse Terry, he had no interactions with her or her so-called guests whatsoever. And just that alone should be enough to establish her RO as frivolous. But it is beyond obvious that Myra was weaponizing the law and picked Terry because she figured he was vulnerable. Unfortunately, also for various reasons, we went into an unnecessary panic. The constant stress from the neighbor issue added to the already long struggle with our own situation and had left us beaten down. This left us with a lack of focus and unable to think clearly. And the one-sidedness of everything made us feel more dubious of the legal system. This was especially prominent in our case because we had to take into consideration who Myra might bring to use as a false witness, which, ironically enough, has not proven to be the case, as several tenants have signed sworn affidavits against us that support Eric's claim that we harassed Myra. And after so many years of proven abuse from her, this same person who falsified evidence for our RO by putting knife marks on her door and said it must have been Terry is now getting away with more lies by actually being one of the witnesses for our eviction. We suspect Myra will have the sickening audacity to actually use her claim about the knife marks as evidence for our eviction. We would like to explain why we believe the knife marks on Myra's door were put there by Myra and her boyfriend in an attempt to falsify evidence for her RO against Terry. For a better understanding, I will also post a diagram and pictures of the area where these knife marks took place. And after hearing what I say and seeing the posts on my Instagram, we ask as many people as possible to try to come up with a feasible alternative as to how those knife marks were placed, other than Myra and her boyfriend putting them there. Because if we are missing something viable, we would sure like to know what it is. And with the vast amount of intelligent people that must be out there, we should be able to get an answer if there is one. Before starting, I would also like to add that at the time we got Myra's RO against Terry, we had several good reasons to suspect Jay was behind it, or at the very least knew about and or supported it. And now, if supported by the right people and pursued by the right source, we think pretty much everything related to this issue can be traced back to Jay and Eric. In addition to everything else, Jay knows Myra has proven to be a repeated liar, and we have informed him about Myra's falsified evidence. Yet, he's using her as a witness for our eviction, and this alone should say a lot about Jay. Now to the information related to the falsified evidence. If you look at the picture on my Instagram page, from the vantage point of our unit, you can see most of the second floor and part of the first floor in our 15-unit building. There is no on-site manager because any building with less than 16 units does not legally require an on-site manager. Our building has 5 units on the ground level and 10 on the second floor. Our unit is located in the southwest corner of the second floor. Myra's unit is next to our unit and is straight ahead of us to the east. Eric's unit is directly across from Myra's, and Maggie's unit is located on the opposite corner from us, on the northeast corner of the building. At the time, 5 tenants, including us, on the second floor had security cameras, 4 of whom had cameras that were in line of sight with Myra's door, 2 of whom were Eric and Maggie. As you may know from my other videos, Eric has been trying hard for a long time to get us evicted, and is now one of the witnesses for our eviction. And on Eric's behalf, Maggie has deceitfully signed a sworn affidavit filled with lies, which, with proof of her lies, I intend to cover more about Maggie in a later video. At the hearing for Myra's restraining order against Terry, the judge, who didn't seem to be overly favorable to Terry, refused to look at any of the video he had of Myra, regardless of how egregious her behavior in those videos were, or how many times they would prove her to be a liar. And unlike my case against Eric, that was dismissed in about 3 seconds after getting to say about 3 words, the judge at Terry's hearing spent a respectable amount of time listening to what Myra had to say. But there was one video that the judge asked Terry's lawyer if he had, and that was the time-lapse video I had recorded from our security camera during the 24-hour time frame in which Myra claimed the knife marks on her door were made. Terry is not seen in this video. In fact, he had not been nowhere near Myra's door in ages. The judge asked if we had that video to prove this, and when Terry's lawyer said, the judge moved on to another topic. Concern and anger at what was being done to Terry prompted me to organize this evidence, which was difficult and time-consuming, and this, along with everything else we struggled to put together with tremendous stress, was basically just ignored. While going through the videos that we took to the hearing, I even tried to see if the cleaning crew might have accidentally scrapped one of their tools along Myra's door while passing by. But this was not the case, and it was a reach too, because the 2 somewhat large and deep scratch marks on her door looked very deliberate. Both in Terry's response to and at the hearing of Myra's RO against Terry, the following questions were asked. If Myra was so concerned and had so much fear, why didn't she call the police and or get a police report, like the way she loves to ask for police business cards to prove we harass her? And with all the tenants with security cameras that would have been able to catch Terry making those knife marks, why didn't she ask any of these neighbors to check for the video proof that would have shown Terry making those knife marks on her door? This especially applies to Eric, who seems to live for something to use against us. At the time, Eric had 2 cameras, one pointed directly at us and the other facing towards Myra's unit. As you can see in the picture and diagram, Eric has added a window camera now, too. Again, Eric's unit is pretty much directly across from Myra's unit. And given the way Eric spends so much time monitoring us, if he had not directly witnessed who put those knife marks on Myra's door, there is no way he would not have checked his security camera footage to see who made those scratches on her door. And if Myra really thought that Terry had made them, there is no way she would not have at least asked Eric to check his footage. In fact, this would be the first thing most people would notice and think of. And not too long before this, Myra also had a security camera in her living room window, but she took it down. During this time, Maggie also had a security camera in window, and she frequently said how, along with emails, she sent Jay videos of Myra and her boyfriend doing everything from carrying mattresses to bringing back groceries. However, Maggie apparently had no videos when it came to scratches on Myra's door. And of course, there were 2 other tenants on our floor with security cameras that were in line of sight with Myra's door, neither of whom Myra bothered to ask. I also checked our security camera footage to see if any of the various unsavory-looking characters that frequented Myra's unit could have put those marks on her door. But there were no videos of anyone doing anything to Myra's door. No videos or witnesses, including the tenants who have recently signed the fine sworn affidavits against us. So, with the type of characters involved, after applying logic, a systematic breakdown of events, and videos to back it all up, we have only been able to come to one conclusion. If anyone had put those marks on Myra's door while her door was closed, they would have been recorded on our doorbell security camera. Myra and Michael were obviously very aware of this. Myra's apartment door opens inward, and when her door was in this inward position, Myra and her boyfriend would have been able to put those marks on her door while being out of the line of sight from our security camera. And although, while their door was in the inward position, Myra and Michael could have somewhat concealed their actions from the other neighbors by one positioning their body as cover for the other. Their actions being seen by or detected by other tenants apparently wasn't much of a concern for them, providing our camera was no longer within line of sight of what they were doing. And because of the angling, this would include our camera capturing the scratches after the door was closed, allowing Myra and Michael to come back a few hours later and display an artificial response as they supposedly noticed the scratches when they got to their door. So, in conclusion, if anyone can think of another way these scratches were put on Myra's door, we would like you to please share it with us. Thanks for watching, and I hope you continue.
No, 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 bordo sono passano. Ciao, ciao, ciao. I'm trying to be all this popping, and then I'd be like, oh, I tell you guys, the stadium in Houston is great. Hi. I'm good. How are you? Good. Yes. Merry Christmas. Yeah, sometimes match people.